Welcome everyone to Keep It Classy Tech. This is going to be a first initial look video of the Sony X95J. It's also going to include first measurements. I took some pictures during the unboxing. I didn't record it, but it's extremely well packed, like way overpacked even. So there's a thick piece of cardboard around the screen with a piece of foam in there as well. The TV itself is actually quite thick. It's not a thin TV at all. It's very industrial, rugged looking. Those are all plastic covers to cover the back of the TV after running your wires, and the two feet or legs that come with the TV on the bigger sizes can be adjusted in 3 different ways. On the 65 can only be at the ends of the TV, either in a like flat, almost flush-like mount to your desk or table that you'll be using, or slightly raised a few inches so that you can fit a sound bar. So the notches on the feet will slide into those 3 holes, but you only use 2 of them, and you can raise or lower the TV that way. Here's the back side of the TV, pretty typical of Sony's design this year. But again, it is a quite thick and meaty TV, but I personally don't mind. I'd rather better performance. So it's also quite heavy for a 65-inch as well, and the box has a lot of extra packing. But here's the first image that I took, and that parrot, I swear, was looking right at me. It is a very bright and vibrant image. Now this one is just showing the black bars. So on the bottom right, you can see where there's white against it. There's slightly raised blacks in the black bars. Other than that, they're doing pretty good. And then here, just wanted to show how much the green pops on this TV, and this is in custom accurate mode with live color turned off. Now for the initial measurement, I took color temperature, and it's not D65 white point, but it did measure at 6500 Kelvin. It's a little lacking in green for D65 when it comes to the rest of the out-of-the-box measurements. So the grayscale error number is high, but that's because it's not quite D65, but all the color errors are quite low. And here you can see grayscale is actually very, very good for out-of-the-box. Alright, and then here was counting the dimming zones. So there's 6 going from left to right, and then 10 going from top to bottom. So you end up with these wide, thin zones, and there's 60 of them, and I personally believe they're shaped that way just to help the black bars in 2.4:1 content look darker. So here's all the measurements that I took with the out-of-the-box white point, the brightness level needed to get to 100 nits in SDR when peak luminance is turned off, the default SDR luminance in custom mode when it's at default 35 is 400 nits. Then SDR measurements are peak luminance high 1050, medium 850, low 700, and off 500, and that's with brightness at max. SDR full field was 500 with peak luminance turned off, and it didn't matter what level peak luminance, if it was on, it was 575. Game mode measured the same as custom, so there's no change there. Contrast ratio is native in SDR with local dimming off. It's about 2300 to 1, and then using local dimming that can go up to about 3200 to 1. Then in game mode with local dimming on medium, it was about the same again. Then for HDR, it goes up a little bit. And then the corner test, so normally when you measure contrast ratio, you have the alternating black white with 4x4 patterns on the screen, but using that pattern, the local dimming zones aren't able to shut off on the TV. So using the corner pattern, it puts white boxes in each corner and the rest of the screen is black, and then you can measure with the dimming zones how dark the black area gets, and then also the brightness of the white area. And in HDR with local dimming set to high, reached a highest peak of about 73,000 to 1. So what you might be seeing up to this point is that the numbers are not favorable or very impressive so far, and they're really not. However, the TV itself is impressive, and we'll come to that soon. Alright, so for HDR, here's all the numbers listed with local dimming off, low, medium, and high, going from 0.25% all the way up to 100%. And then at the end is a 10% max peak of 1200 nits. That was in cool color temperature with contrast max, brightness max, everything maxed out. So again, this is not a numbers TV, but in real world, real content viewing, the XR processor is really good at diverting the energy where it needs to be, and the overall average picture level is very bright, and it's very impressive. And then here in this dark scene that has HDR highlights as well, it does a very good job of making those highlights actually get pretty bright. It does lift the dark area around it just a little bit, but overall it blends in well with the scene, and it doesn't smash out the HDR highlights like the QN90A does when it's trying to keep things dark. Alright, and then in the next scene right after that, we have this pretty bright average picture level outdoor scene with plenty of green, and again, it really does a very good job in person, and my camera is nowhere near capable of actually showing how bright it's getting. Alright, so I'm going to switch over to gaming for a minute. Didn't see really any problems in gaming. I was checking for ghosting, and there's hardly any at all, although I will say in SDR, if any of the extra processing stuff's on, so reality creation or whatever, it can add just a touch of ghosting for some reason, but when all the processing stuff is turned off, then it was fine. And then also when using black frame insertion at max, it was adding a little bit of like a red trailing, but it was very hard to see, very, very fine. I highly doubt many people would actually notice it or see it, but it is something that does seem to be an effect when using black frame insertion. There was a update for the TV, so I will retest all of that. But other than that, just normally gaming, the input lag is low, the response time is good, the brightness is very good, shadow detail is excellent, bright highlight detail is also very, very good. So again, this is just a first initial impressions, only had the TV for one night, just wanted to go through a decent amount of stuff and get all the measurements and stuff that you're looking for on this TV, but I will be having a more in-depth review, and I'm sure other videos, setting videos and so on, coming up over the next week or so. But again, keep in mind, especially a scene like this, my camera just fell apart. It was not capturing it nearly as bright as what I was seeing in person. When you have really bright scenes like that, the average picture level gets very bright on this TV, and it still follows tracking very well. And I was using, again, custom accurate mode. In HDR, I was using gradation preferred, live color turned off, no added extra processing features other than having reality creation on auto. Also, when it came to motion, so on the A80J, I can use smoothness 1 and not really see soap opera effect. On this, smoothness 1, I do. I think that's the difference in just the way OLED works versus LCD, with LCD having a little bit of blur naturally. And just so there is a difference in the motion going from the OLED to the LCD, even at the same settings. Alright, and then so again, the measurements that you saw earlier were not impressive. I'm sure a lot of people are just going to look at that and want to write the TV off, but you really shouldn't. The way Sony handles the local dimming algorithm in real content, I pretty much don't really see blooming, not very much at all. The only time that I was really seeing it is like some of the demos that you're about to see where they're designed for OLEDs, where pretty much the whole background is black and then there's a bright object. yeah, then you see blooming. But in any of the TV, movie, and gaming content that I've tested with so far, it's nothing at all like that. And again, the brightness measurements would say that it's not as bright as, say, the QN90A, but in real content, I would disagree. This scene, like right here, again, camera can't capture it nearly as bright as it was, but it was very bright in person, and the numbers don't tell the story. This TV does lift the blacks a little bit in certain scenes when it's trying to push the HDR highlights, whereas the QN90A will try to bring the black levels down more, but at the expense of those bright highlights. So it's kind of a toss-up of scene to scene which one would actually be brighter, even though the QN90A measures considerably brighter. So it all comes down to the algorithm, how the processor is working, and just how they designed the TV to work from different kinds of scenes. For me personally, taking into account out-of-the-box accuracy, the way detail is held, brightness, colors, just the entire overall image, so far what I'm seeing, this is the best looking LCD that I've tested so far. Again, the QN90A is more of a just workhorse or just powerhouse of brightness and black level ability, and just really impressive in some scenes, but it also gives up some detail, and it's not the most accurate, especially when it comes to HDR and the EOTF tracking, which it just does not do accurately because you cannot disable dynamic tone mapping. So just if you take everything as a whole into consideration, I would say I prefer the way that the X95J looks most of the time. And then the QNED 90 I would place under both of these TVs as well. But again, this is still early impressions. I have a lot more to view and look at and test as well. But in the meantime, if you are considering the X95J, I would say it's a very safe bet that you will not be disappointed. If you've been following my channel for a while, you would know that a couple months ago this was on my list, and I was trying to wait for the 85-inch X95J to become available and was considering that for my own personal television, but I ended up getting the G1 first and then going to the A80J 77-inch. And I have to say, if I did decide to wait and ended up with the 85 X95J, I would have been perfectly happy with it. It is really that good. It really is. It's a very beautiful TV. That the A80J is still better, but at the size difference, if they were the same price, I would probably take the extra size and go for the X95J. Especially when it comes to gaming, just because the A80J does dim down gaming, and of course this will not do that. Just keep in mind that, like all the Sonys, there's two HDMI 2.1 ports, one of which is also the eARC port, and both of those you can either do 4K 120 or 4K 60 Dolby Vision. You can't have it at the same time. And there's also no Dolby Vision game mode on Sony, so you're pretty much giving up Dolby Vision gaming, at least currently, unless they would add that in a firmware update in the future, and we are still waiting on VRR update to be added as well. So I guess that pretty much is going to wrap up this initial impression. Again, more videos to come. It's about 5:30 in the morning now. I stayed up all night working on this. Try and get it ready for you guys, so let me know what you think, and if you like this video, I'd appreciate a like so that more people can find it, and let me know down below, are you considering the X95J? Do you think even with the, let's say, lackluster numbers, that you would be willing to give it a chance just because of the processor and how well it handles its algorithm for blooming and brightness and just the overall detail that it provides? Alright, so thank you all again for watching, and I hope you all have a good one, and I will, like I said, have more videos on this soon, so keep an eye out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you then.